Welcome back. My name is Matt Reiners, and I'm the co-founder of Eversound, a company dedicated to improving quality of life for older adults by giving them the gift of hearing. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Arnold, the Chief Operating Officer at the United Group of Companies. The United Group of Companies is a nationally recognized, award-winning corporation with over 40 years of experience. The United Group has become known for its successful development, acquisition, repositioning, and property management for a variety of real estate assets, including student housing, independent senior housing, multifamily rental housing, commercial offices, and mixed-use developments. Thanks for joining me today, Jeff.
Thanks, Matt. It's a pleasure being here.
So Jeff, I know we talked a little bit about the United Group of Companies, but can you run me through about your background and share what got you into senior living and into this space?
Sure. It goes all the way back to college, actually. In the early 90s, as I was a student in college, I started working at a apartment complex right near the university, and it's been in my blood ever since. So as I walked through college, I kind of got into that site level management, went from regional, then came up from Texas to New York, and have been serving as the COO since 2014. So it's been a almost a 30-year ride to date, and it's been a fun one, and glad I've been doing it this long.
That's awesome. I love that you had those roots, during college and being able to get that experience and kind of growing up from there.
Yeah.
And I know with the United Group of Companies, you guys have kind of seems like your hands dipped into a little bit of everything. And, I know one of the things that continues to build quite a buzz around the industry is just this active adult opportunity. And I see you guys are already doing this. Can you walk me through what this landscape looks like and the opportunity out there?
Sure, I'd love to. So it is kind of new. It's a new kind of product type, or it's becoming more well-known out in the industry. I think that it's very synergistic to how student housing was 20, 25 years ago, when it started to become by the bed and became more recognized by institutions, and you're starting to see that play out. And I think for some of the reasons that is playing out that way is currently we're having 10,000 plus people retire a day. Around that 65 to 68-year-old mark, which we're trying to target. And we're going to see that cap out in the next 5 years, roughly at probably 12,000 people retiring every day. So you're going to see more people coming into the space. So, and I think we're going to see a long landing strip going all the way past 2035, where they estimate that there'll be more 65 plus people in our society compared to under 18-year-olds for the first time. So I think you'll see that in 2035 for an investment vehicle. I think we're going to see this is going to be around for a while. And I think as you start hearing about it more and learning about it more, it's going to kind of come into a class of its own. And we've been doing this part of it for plus 30 years. We actually celebrated our 50th year anniversary this year. We've been doing it 30, 40 years in this actual space. And we're really starting to see that mature. And it's great to see. And we've been, I would say, probably the pioneers, even before I was born. The company has been involved with this. So.
No, and it makes sense too. I mean, I think we've all seen how those demographics are shifting, and it's pretty remarkable when you actually think about it. And, to your point, there's gonna be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 18. That's wild.
Yeah.
I think too, for the active adult, right, with some of these other communities, like people are looking for that social component. And I feel like those offer a great opportunity for that at maybe not the price point at some of these other places that you might see out there that maybe require a little bit more level of care during that.
That's right.
And now I know the United Group is not solely doing senior living and active adult. Can you share how you're incorporating ideas from the traditional multifamily into this active adult opportunity?
Sure, absolutely. So currently, just to give you a little background, we have about 4,000 active adult units under operations, and we have about 2,500 multifamily units under operations. And I think some of the, and we started in the multifamily side. So I think some of the synergies or some of the things that we can take from one to the other is some of the building designs, clubhouse layouts. We have that kind of market rate feel look. So on the surface, a lot of times it won't look like if they're pulling in that they're pulling into a senior community. It looks like they're pulling into a regular market rate UNI type of community. Some of those differences that we have to peel back is we don't run with a lot of 3 bedrooms, and our 1 to 2 bedroom parity is a little bit different. But by design, we kind of, you'll see that kind of similarity. And so we'll pull from what works in there, test pilot it, into some of our earlier products. We've built probably 15 of these over the years and leased up. And then I think some of the other similarities is that's where we really want to draw some of the people in, as opposed to work. Some of our employees, we like to bring them from that space a little bit more often than not, instead of the continuing care senior side of the space, because that's need-based. This is choice-based. So I think that's why we see that similarity or that work structure being the same, and the way that we use the staffing model. And then the other thing is there are premiums. So if we're talking about investments for investors, the rent, there's a rent premium, and it can range anywhere from 5% to 25% over Class A multifamily while you're actually in lease up. The lease up will be a little bit slower, but we use those to size up our rents before we bring them out to market. And we just want a little bit of premium because it's a little bit more exclusive. You're not going to have families in there. And so I think that gives you that edge. Married to our lifestyle program, those two things actually give us that pop. But those are pretty much the similarities that we pull from out of multifamily.
Yeah, it's great you're able to pull kind of like what's working from one side and into the other. I think, there's more opportunity in senior living and senior housing to do those sort of things and take the ideas and what's working. And of course, I think you mentioned a good thing. You got to test pilot it first to make sure it's gonna work before kind of rolling it out more widely. And now I think one thing we'd all agree on, even all the listeners of this from the greater public, is that stigma around senior housing. And I'm curious, how are you all challenging this?
Yeah, so that's starting to go away a little bit more. I mean, actually, if you look at some of the new sitcoms that are out there, there's some based around this type of environment. So as we start seeing more and more of that be prevalent just openly to the public, it will eliminate some of that stigma. But I can go back as far as when I first came here, and I remember going to my mother, who's now about to turn 70, and said, "Hey, I'm going to go work. I want to go work for this company." I was in student housing. That's kind of where I came up, and there's some similarities there that we could have talked about. But they're focused really on this new senior living product. And she said, "So, okay, you're going to go from working with college students to old folks homes?" Because that was what she thought. Even when I said, "Well, I think it's a little bit different. It's active adult." And she was very confused by all of that. So I took her to one of the communities, and she was blown away by it. So there wasn't any knowledge about it. It's not in the mainstream in any way. It is coming into that, but she was so blown away by it. But then when we went and actually toured one, and then I brought her up to look at some that we do with the programming, I think that we've already started having the conversations about her getting into those type of environments, since she's single, living by herself, so that she can kind of be around like-kind people and enjoy those kind of amenities and things. But I think we're going to see that progress. And I think just by looking at the demos that we discussed earlier and how that curve is really going to ramp up and kind of top out in about 2025, we're going to see it become more and more prevalent. And I think it's going to make it's going to do a lot of things just from the investment side. I think it's going to help lower cap rates and make it more relevant in the market. I think it's going to make it easier for us to bring products to market. And I think it's going to help lower those kind of upfront marketing costs to get that awareness out there. It's just going to be there.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It's starting to become more prevalent in our everyday life. I know before I came into senior living, my understanding of what senior living was probably that more old school skilled nursing facility that didn't necessarily smell good. And
Right.
the more I was around it and saw it and able to like see it, it definitely changes that perception and that overall narrative. And now I know you mentioned like your lifestyles and your programming a little bit, because I know you guys aren't solely focused on the actual building, but you have this award-winning lifestyle program called the Sun Program. Can you shed some light, pun intended, on what this program is all about?
Yeah, so the SUN program, it stands for Senior Umbrella Network. It's trademarked. It was trademarked, I think in 1998. I know we just renewed it not too long ago. And it's really the heart and soul of what we're doing. Everything else just sticks and bricks, right? So they could go get that anywhere. But I think the differentiator is our programming, and it starts right at the beginning. It starts right at the beginning of construction. And so a little bit about that program and what it stands for. It's a 7-pronged program. And the prongs are fun and recreation, health and wellness, community, friendship, education, lifelong learning, finance and legal, convenient and economic, safety and security. And what we do is we take these and we go out into the marketplace and fuse them into the community, whether it be people who do yoga and come in and do yoga classes, or we do Wind Down Wednesdays, and we may bring someone from a local wine store or something to help do some tasting. We do that right at the beginning. We start building that platform up before we even have a resident move in, because that's what's going to make this what we call sticky in the business. And what we get from that is the residents become friends. They become lifelong friends. They don't want to leave each other. And when we look statistically at our resident profile, 70% are there because they've been widowed or widowed. This gives them almost a little bit of a new lease on life, but you got to get them out. You got to we do off-site things. And, we do poker, we do Wind Down Wednesdays, we do all these things to bring them together. And then on the other side, for the investment side, when you get that kind of stickiness, your attrition goes down. So you look at multifamily renewal ratios, and they're somewhere around 50%. We're hitting 80. And so what does that do? That lowers your marketing cost. It lowers your turnover cost, and it gets your expense ratios down in line with multifamily, where you see that higher living that can really creep up and make it a little bit more difficult to make sense of it. So I think that is really kind of our bread and butter. It's what gets us all together. But the ultimate goal really is, by doing all this, it's to serve the purpose of what we're here for and what I try to instill with our teams. And it's very simple. They've done so much for our lives, whether it was a teacher, a doctor, a firefighter, a police officer. They did all these things for our society over the years, and now it's their time, and it's our time to give back. And I think it's a wonderful purpose. And this really kind of is the framework of how we can provide that and do something valuable with our times and our career, something that we can all be proud about.
Yeah, I love that. So many golden nuggets in there, Jeff. And I love how you talk about like the overall stickiness, right? Because I think you can't just assume people are going to move in and be happy by themselves, but like actually giving them this framework and these opportunities to connect with others. We find that to be super, super powerful. And, kudos to you and your team for prioritizing it and actually, making something out of it. And amazing to see you're seeing the results on the business outcome side as well. And my final question here for you, Jeff, is one of my favorite questions to ask people. But if you could give other senior living providers or just people in the space just 3 guiding principles as we're moving through 2023, what would you say?
So, I think, listen, we know 2023, you hear interest rates, you hear inflation, you hear recession, and the reality is we're up against some of these things. And it's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past, but it's still the same concept. You still got to operate. You still got to take care of your residents, you got to take care of your investors. It's the whole thing. You still got to keep going. And I think right now, it's more importantly to love who you're with. The residents are there. You got to really get in there and nurture it a little bit more. You're going to see sales velocity start to go down more and more and more, which is going to impact those revenue streams. So, you're better off right now loving the one you're with, putting that time in there, and try to get those, attrition rates even lower. Try to get that 90%. Renewal rate and those sort of things. I think it's right now also number 2 is the time to really focus on those expenses. Sometimes and not starve the property and not stop delivering the promise that you made to the residents are there. You still, like I said, you got to love the ones you're with right now. But there's other things you got to be creative. If you're seeing your occupancy dip, sometimes a lot of times I say, hey, let's throw $10,000 at this, $20,000 at this to get that occupancy where we need to be. In some cases, that may be true. In some cases, you're better off saying, you know what, I'm going to ride this out a little bit, and still, find that middle ground and just be more detailed, understanding your KPIs and what's guiding you there, and get really more granular and what's working and what's not. And it's time to get analytical. You look a year ago, 2022, especially pre-April, when you started seeing interest rates pops, they were just flying in the door. They were just coming, rents moving 10, 15%. As Willie Nelson says, turn out the lights, the party's over. It'll come back on, but it's time to go home and take a nap. We'll get back at it. So I think that, don't throw the kitchen sink at it right now. Love the one you're with. Don't throw the kitchen sink out of it, and stay relevant in your communities. We talked about that SUN program and bringing your communities into your property. Stay relevant. They're probably going through some hard times too. There's some may be shutting their doors. If you have the opportunity and you are running at 99%, keep them going, keep them in your community, because this is going to turn around. It may be a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years, but for those that are mindful of that and stay relevant in their communities, when we do turn that corner, you'll be ready to go. And that's probably the 3 top things that I would recommend for operators to do right now.
Awesome. So much wisdom, Jeff, and just appreciate your passion, your energy, and your attention that you're putting into everything you guys are doing, not just for, United Group, but just for the industry as a whole. So from me to you, thank you, and appreciate you and your time here so much today. All
right. Thank you, Matt. It was a pleasure being on today. Really appreciate it.